Good morning, brothers and sisters. I've divided my sharings into two parts since last Chinese New Year until now. It has been about a year. I've shared to you my meditations, my experience, my spiritual inspiration, or some of my spiritual practices. I hope to have some time to quiet ourselves, to enjoy the closeness with the Lord and come before Him. In part 2, mainly I will share one or two verses with some explanations and a story to elaborate the verses further to you all. 1 year has passed. I will combine part 1 and part 2 together just to make it simpler to you all. It is easier for production as well, but I was greatly blessed and really enjoyed the process. I will merge my recording into one and will last for about 10 minutes. I hope you may like it. To make it short, I'd like to remind you all to shout for joy, to quiet yourself for worshipping, to have the anchor points in order you can live before the Lord for the whole day, to set your focus on the Lord, no matter your spirit, your whole body, to love God. I'd like to read with you verses in the Gospel according to John, chapter 14, verse 26. And it said, "But the Helper, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, He will teach you all things and bring to your remembrance all that I have said to you." Let's read one more verses in the Gospel according to John, chapter 15, verse 26. And it said, "But when the Helper comes, whom I will send to you from the Father, the Spirit of truth, who proceeds from the Father, He will bear witnesses about me." These verses were talking about the Helper, that is the Holy Spirit, whom came and helped me and all of us to know God, to bear witness for the Lord, to help us to think of the truth, which also teach us to know God, which is the most important. The Lord has mentioned the Holy Spirit a lot at the last evening, and the Holy Spirit is very important. After the salvation has accomplished, but before the Lord ascended to heaven, He told His disciples that He will go and send the Holy Spirit to come on the night of the Pentecost. The Holy Spirit descended on that night, and the church appeared. The time of the church is also called the time of the Holy Spirit, for it is also the work of the Holy Spirit among us. Since until now, the work of the church shall be also the work of the Holy Spirit. One thing which is really regrets that the church nowadays only know very little about the Holy Spirit. Their lack of the knowledge about the Holy Spirit. Even they have wrong concepts about the Holy Spirit. On the other hand, it is even important is that many Christians are not filled by the Holy Spirit, or they do not follow the Holy Spirit. Therefore, their lack of the power of the Holy Spirit. So the church are quite weak. The Christians nowadays see the Holy Spirit as a kind of a power, just like the electricity. But actually, the Holy Spirit is not a kind of power. The Holy Spirit is a person who loves us so much. He is full of wisdom and power. He can give us power, for He is powerful. But He is not a power. Therefore, man cannot control Him. But the Holy Spirit can work inside us. When we talk about the Holy Spirit, never think that He is a power. If we have the Holy Spirit, then I'm powerful. It doesn't work this way. We are full of power because we are filled by the Holy Spirit. He's in charge of us. When we follow the Holy Spirit, and He can strengthen us. The Holy Spirit can give us strength to overcome sin, to give us strength in our ministry or to love. All these, the Holy Spirit can help us. Secondly, the wrong concept we think is the work of the Holy Spirit is God's miracle. This is not accurate as well. Actually, miracles happen every day, but the miracle is not the supernatural thing. When the Holy Spirit works in our hearts, we can say, like, if we know Him or experience Him deeper, we can say this is also God's miracles. There are many books in our church talk about the Holy Spirit. You can go through those books. I like to say especially one of the greatest and important work of the Holy Spirit is to teach us in knowing God. For the Holy Spirit came to glorify the Lord. He ought to glorify the Lord in our hearts and in the believer's heart as well. If we want to know God, we need Holy Spirit to open our spiritual eye. If we wanted to enter deeper into God's love, again, we need the Holy Spirit to open our spiritual eye. We need the Holy Spirit to work in our hearts. Brothers and sisters, we should not allow the enemies to affect our faith so that we cannot be filled by the Holy Spirit. Without the Holy Spirit, it is difficult for us to know God, and it is difficult for us to know God's love. The Holy Spirit came to pour down the love of God in our hearts. Brothers and sisters, we should not get wrong. We may have something which hinders the Holy Spirit who work in us. We shall forsake those things. Even though we sing the hymn or read the Bible sometimes, there may be something which hinders you to be filled by the Holy Spirit. Then it is difficult for us to experience the Lord. Paul reminds us not to get drunk with wine, but be filled with the Spirit. That means we shall be influenced by the Spirit, to be led by the Holy Spirit. We need to be strengthened by the Holy Spirit so that we are full of strength. We have to be cleansed from what is dishonorable. If we have anything hinder us with the relationship with God, we should ask the Holy Spirit to remove our obstacles. We need the Holy Spirit to open our eye to get to know the Lord or experience Him, to open the truth for us. Brothers and sisters, we do need the work of the Holy Spirit to work inside us, but only if we're willing to walk according to the Spirit. We shall follow the will of the Holy Spirit. I'd like to tell you a story. There was a farmer. He was a typical farmer. All he knew was farming. But there was something which was not very big, but really bothered him. That was the sound which came from the door's hinges. He has a big wooden door in his house. There was a sharp, high-pitched sound came out every time when the door opened or closed. That really annoyed him. When he was still single, the frequency of opening and closing the door was not a lot. But once he got married and his kids were born, the frequency of the sound of the door opens and closes was getting more and more every year. He will have grandchildren to be born in the near future. This farmer was getting more and more annoyed. He even easily broke his temper. Later on, he even got sick. His grandson came in and the door opened. The farmer said, "Oh my goodness, the noise of this door really got me. I have enough." His grandson, who was a toddler who just started schooling, took a bottle of oil from the kitchen. He lubricated hinges with the oil. The noise from the door hinges has gone. Then this farmer realized all he needed was a few drops of oil can solve the problem of his entire life. Brothers and sisters, do you also have some difficulties which are annoying you as well? Do you have any weakness which we cannot overcome? Do you know there is always a solution in God? all we need to do is to rely on the Holy Spirit, listen to Him, and willing to change. Those troubles which hinder us for our lifetime will go away. The power of the Holy Spirit is great. I hope we relied on the Holy Spirit to know God in our living, to preach and to bear witness by relying on the Holy Spirit. Brothers and sisters, don't forget this time is the most glorious time, for this is the time of the Holy Spirit. The Lord has sent the Holy Spirit to dwell in our hearts, in every one of us. The Holy Spirit will be with us forever. Brothers and sisters, in the beginning of the new year, I hope we are filled with the Holy Spirit to experience deeply the work of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.